I used to believe a man only becomes who he is because of what he sees in the mirror. Turns out, sometimes the mirror lies. It hides the people who stood behind you, whispering doubt into your ears until you believed their voice was your own. My name is Caleb, and this is not a love story. This is the story of a house divided by secrets. A story of women who smiled sweetly but carried knives in their hearts. And a story of how I, a quiet and ordinary boy from a one-road town in Oklahoma, finally stopped being afraid. It started with my stepmother, Diane. From the moment Dad married her, Diane hated me. I was 7. She was young, blonde, and sharp-tongued, the kind of woman who could charm an entire room then walk out and curse every name under her breath. At first, she didn't hit me or scream. No, Diane was smarter than that. Her game was quieter. She rolled her eyes when I spoke. She sighed when I entered a room. She whispered to Dad behind closed doors, and suddenly I wasn't allowed to stay up past 8 or have dessert, or go with them to church on Sundays. I'd hear her laughing with her friends about how she was raising a little shadow, and not even a good one. When I turned 10, she stopped pretending. "You're the reason your mother's gone," she spat one night, drunk on boxed wine while Dad worked the late shift. "Your mama didn't want to live after you were born. You're a curse." That one stuck. Even now, at 27, I still wake up sometimes hearing her voice. I still second-guess compliments. I still think I'm not good enough, even when I should know better. I thought things would get better when I married Zoe. God, Zoe. With her sunshine laugh and wild curls, she made me feel like I wasn't invisible. She saw me. She loved me. At least, I thought she did. We met at college. I was majoring in communications because my advisor said I'd be great at background roles, and Zoe was in psychology, always scribbling in her notebook, diagnosing everyone around her like a detective of the soul. She said I was gentle, sensitive, kind. But I know now, she really meant weak. We married 2 years after graduation. I got a steady job at the local news station as a junior editor, cutting video clips and fixing scripts nobody ever read. She started working at a high school, shadowing counselors and teaching health classes. We had a little apartment and a cat named Noodle. From the outside, everything looked fine. On the inside? I didn't know what I didn't know. Until Diane called me one Sunday morning. I remember the time, 9:07 a.m., because Zoe had just left for her weekend walk, something she started doing alone about 4 months earlier. I never questioned it. Why would I? I trusted her. That was my mistake. Diane's voice was cold, almost bored. "She's cheating on you." I blinked. "What?" "Your precious wife. Zoe. She's got someone else." "That's not." "I saw her. With one of her students, I think. Real cozy. At that bar downtown, Thursday night." I didn't speak. She chuckled. "I knew it'd break you. You never were built strong, Caleb. Just like your mother." I hung up. And for the first time in years, I cried. Not because I believed her, God knows Diane was a master manipulator. But because even the idea of it cracked something inside me that had already been patched too many times. When Zoe came home later that day, flushed from her walk, I didn't say anything. Not then. I just watched her. Watched the way she smiled too fast, avoided my eyes. And I knew. Something had shifted. Something had been broken for a while, and I'd been too blind, too trusting, too insecure to see it. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I waited. And that's when things started unraveling faster than I ever could have imagined. It didn't take long for the silence between Zoe and me to become something thick, like wet cement that hardened each day. I watched her more closely after Diane's call. Not because I was sure she was cheating. But because I needed something, anything, to prove Diane wrong. I wanted her to be lying. Because if she wasn't, then what did that say about me? One night, Zoe left her phone on the coffee table while she was in the shower. I wish I could say I resisted. That I had enough pride, enough trust. But I didn't. My hands were shaking when I picked it up. There were no saved messages. No threads with any names I didn't recognize. But the photos? There was a blurred image in her deleted folder, two people in a dark room, bodies pressed together. The lighting was red, the kind you'd find in a bar or a club. You couldn't see much, just shadows and the corner of someone's smile. I stared at it for a long time. When she came out of the bathroom in her robe, I dropped the phone back where I found it and pretended to be watching TV. I didn't say anything for days. I told myself it could be anything. A friend. An old picture. It didn't matter. But it did. A week later, she asked me what was wrong. We were brushing our teeth side by side, mirror versions of each other. "You've been quiet," she said, spitting out toothpaste. I rinsed my mouth. Tired. Her eyes narrowed. "That all?" I nodded. She didn't believe me. That night, I sat awake long after she went to sleep. The room was dark except for the street lamp glow sneaking through the blinds. I looked at her, this woman I thought I knew, this woman who made me believe I could be loved. She shifted in her sleep and whispered something I couldn't make out. And I realized, I didn't know her at all. I decided I would talk to Diane again. I hated the idea, but part of me figured if she knew more, if she had proof, I could confront Zoe with something solid. Something she couldn't deny. So I called Diane the next afternoon during my break. "Back for more," she said with a grin in her voice. "Didn't take long." "What do you know?" "I told you already. She's screwing around with someone younger." "You think I don't recognize a woman who's lying through her teeth?" "Who is he?" "I don't know his name," she said. "But I know the bar. Jasper's. That's where I saw them." I hung up. I didn't thank her. The next Thursday, I parked across from Jasper's with my windows down. I waited. At 8:43 p.m., I saw her. Zoe. Laughing. Leaning on the arm of a boy who couldn't have been older than 21. Maybe one of the seniors from her school? He was handsome in that cocky way some young guys are, tight jeans, smug grin, motorcycle helmet under his arm. They walked in together. I didn't follow. I just sat there and stared through the windshield at my reflection in the glass. I wasn't crying. I wasn't yelling. I was empty. When she came home that night, I pretended to be asleep. She kissed my forehead. Her lips were cold. The next morning, I told her I knew. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just said it. "I saw you. At Jasper's." Her face changed instantly, no denial, no panic. Just a slow, tired sigh. "I was going to tell you," she said. "You were?" "Yes." "When?" "I don't know," she whispered. I didn't mean for it to happen. There was silence. The kind that fills a house like smoke. Then she looked me in the eye and said the thing that lit the first match in my soul. "You're not blameless, Caleb. You're not enough. You've never been. You think being kind is the same as being a man?" I blinked. "And don't pretend you trust Diane either," she added suddenly. "You want to believe her now? That woman's been lying your whole life." I stared at her. She crossed her arms. "You think she told you out of kindness? She hates you. She always has. Maybe you should ask her where she goes on Thursday nights." I didn't answer. "You want the truth?" she spat. She's been sleeping with her students. One of them's the same kid I was with. Diane brought him into our lives. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was the first time in a long while the pieces started making sense. The rot in my life wasn't just Zoe. It was the women who raised me. Who taught me I was nothing. Who fed me shame like sugar and watched me shrink. That night, I sat in the garage for 2 hours, staring at the tools I never used, wondering when I'd start fixing things for real. And I made a plan. A quiet, simple plan. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't run. I'd ruin them both. Revenge doesn't come in a single moment. It's not dramatic like in the movies, where someone shouts a name and pulls a trigger. It's slower. Like dripping poison into a glass until the water turns black. And I was done drinking from it. I started with Diane. She taught high school English at the same school where Zoe worked. That part always bothered me, how closely their lives overlapped. Like they were cut from the same cloth. Maybe that's why Diane was the first one to recognize Zoe's betrayal. Or maybe it was just projection. I started paying attention. That weekend, I told my dad I wanted to visit. It wasn't a surprise, he still believed in family, even if mine had become a myth. Diane greeted me at the door with a fake smile and too much perfume. "You look tired," she said. "Still letting that little wife of yours run you into the ground?" I smiled back. "Still making people miserable just by standing near them?" She laughed, like it was a joke. It wasn't. I watched her carefully that evening. The way she texted during dinner, how she left the room 3 times to check on work emails, even though she never brought her laptop. My dad never noticed. He never did. After they went to sleep, I walked into the kitchen and found her purse on the table. She'd left it open. I didn't even have to dig. The folded note inside was right on top. "Meet me behind the library. 7 p.m., park 2 blocks over." No name. Just a heart at the bottom. The handwriting was unmistakably teenage. I took a photo with my phone and slipped the note back in exactly the way I found it. I didn't need more than that. It was enough. When I left the next morning, Diane gave me a fake hug, cold arms and all. She had no idea. I still wasn't sure what to do with the evidence. Not yet. So I turned my attention back to Zoe. I didn't confront her again. That part was over. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't going to change. She was still doing her Thursday walks. I let her. I watched. And while she walked into bars, I walked into her life behind the scenes. I went through our shared files. Found saved passwords. She used the same login for everything: email, work accounts, school admin tools. I wasn't proud of how easily I got in. But I didn't feel guilty either. One evening, after she left, I sat down at my desk with her emails open. And I found them. Dozens of messages between her and one of her students, Daniel P., 19 years old, senior, football captain, already accepted into a local college. Their messages started innocent. "Thanks for the extra help after class." Then it escalated. "You're amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." And finally, "When your husband's out, I'll come over the back way again." I took screenshots of everything. All of it. I backed it up, twice. Then I looked him up on social media. Daniel was the typical small-town golden boy, shirtless selfies, workout videos, grinning with his arm around girls at pep rallies. No one would believe a woman like Zoe, polished and professional, was sneaking him in through our back door. But I had proof. And so did Diane. Because when I checked Daniel's messages on Zoe's email, there was another email string with a different tone. Subject: Thursday. The messages were short, suggestive, and frequent. I nearly laughed. The same boy. 2 women. My wife and my stepmother. Sleeping with the same student. You couldn't make it up. Suddenly, I had a weapon bigger than anything I expected. And I knew how to use it. But I didn't want drama. I didn't want to scream or throw things. I wanted them to feel what I'd felt all my life. Powerless. Broken. Small. And for Diane, especially, who had spent years watching me twist in silence, I wanted her to live with what she'd done. Not just feel embarrassed. Not just lose her job. I wanted to make her wish she'd never been born. I didn't sleep much the night I connected the dots. Zoe and Diane, both tangled up with the same teenage boy. Daniel P. I stared at my ceiling like it was the sky over a battlefield, playing out every move, every counter. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted justice. But not the kind that comes with courts or cops. No, this needed to be deeper. Personal. I started with Daniel. He was the weak link. Too young, too reckless. He bragged online constantly, his stories, his streaks, his gym PRs. It didn't take much effort to find out he was already under some scrutiny. He'd been caught drinking off campus during a game weekend. Suspended for 2 days. Nothing serious, but enough to mark him. I used an anonymous email to send a copy of the screenshots, to both the school board and the local press. Subject: Laketown High teachers inappropriate with same student. I attached the emails from both Zoe and Diane, labeled with time-stamps, dates, and Daniel's school email. Nothing was photoshopped. I didn't need to lie. The truth was rotten enough. I also included the note I found in Diane's purse, just in case anyone needed more fire. I sent it from a public library. Disconnected everything immediately. Then I waited. 3 days later, the story broke on a local news blog. Just a paragraph at first, asking if inappropriate relationships between teachers and students had been overlooked in Laketown. The blog didn't name names yet. But I knew it wouldn't take long. The school sent out a vague email the same day about allegations under investigation. Then the rumors spread. Laketown was small. News traveled faster than light here. By the end of the week, Diane was placed on leave. I visited my dad again that Friday, just to watch the panic up close. She looked worse, sleepless eyes, snapping at the dog, barely spoke to me at all. My dad noticed, finally. "You two fightin' again?" he asked while sipping his usual lukewarm coffee. I shrugged. No clue. She's been off lately. He nodded. Maybe menopause. I almost laughed. When Diane left the room, I followed her out under the pretense of grabbing something from my truck. In the driveway, she turned to me sharply. "You did this," she hissed. I tilted my head. "Do what?" "You little bastard. Don't play innocent. I know your fingerprints. I don't know how, but it's you." "Why would I ruin your life, Diane?" I said flatly. "Your family." She stepped forward, jabbing her finger in the air. "You've been weak your whole life. Hiding in corners. You think this makes you strong?" "No," I said, meeting her eyes for the first time. "But it makes you exposed." She said nothing. Just turned and stormed back into the house. As for Zoe? She got the knock on her classroom door the following Tuesday. Suspended pending investigation. Same as Diane. Different office, same shame. When she came home that night, she dropped her bag by the door and stood staring at me like she couldn't decide if she wanted to scream or sob. "You ruined me," she said. "I didn't sleep with a teenager," I replied. "You don't understand," she said, almost pleading. "He was different. He made me feel alive." She flinched. That's what Diane said. About another boy, last year. Different name, same age. Her mouth dropped. You're lying. No, I said quietly. You both are. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. They had taken so much, my confidence, my marriage, my dignity. All my life, I thought I was weak because I didn't shout. Because I never hit back. But now I understood, silence was sharper than fists. And planning? That was power. So I set the final stage. I followed Diane for days. Not to learn anything, I already knew enough. I just wanted to find the right moment. It came one Thursday. She was walking behind the school after hours, taking a different path than usual. I was already parked nearby. When she turned the corner toward the old maintenance shed, I got out and followed. I didn't need to do much. Just one firm push. She tripped over the edge of a broken concrete step and fell hard. So hard, I heard her hit the ground like wet meat slapping pavement. She screamed. I stood there, watching. Her leg was bent unnaturally. Her fingers scraped at the dirt as she tried to roll over. You did this, she howled. I didn't answer. Instead, I took out my phone, dialed emergency services, and gave them the exact location. Then I walked away. I didn't want her dead. I wanted her broken. When the ambulance arrived, I was gone. Later that night, I sat on my porch with a beer in my hand and silence in my chest. Zoe wasn't home. She'd gone to clear her head. Diane was in the hospital. Both investigations were heating up. Their reputations were gone. Their power? Gone. And me? I finally felt calm. Not happy. Not healed. But calm. For the first time in my life. I felt like I could breathe. The news spread like blood in water. By the end of the week, the town was buzzing. Whispers in grocery stores. Coffee shop stares. I heard one lady mutter, "Predator," under her breath as she walked past my dad's porch. She didn't say who she meant, Diane or Zoe, but honestly, it didn't matter. Both were branded now. Diane was in the hospital, recovering from a shattered pelvis and a fractured spine. The doctors weren't saying much to anyone besides my father, but I overheard him on the phone. May never walk again, he said, voice flat. He said it like someone talking about a stranger. Maybe he was finally seeing her the way I always had. As for Zoe, she didn't come home the next day. Or the next. I knew where she was, staying with a friend on the other side of town, someone from her teaching circle who hadn't yet been tainted by the scandal. That was fine. I needed the house to myself. I cleaned it from top to bottom. Not out of guilt, but to wipe the place of her. The bed sheets? Gone. Her favorite mug? Smashed in the trash. The framed photo of us in front of the courthouse on our wedding day? Burned in the fireplace. I didn't even blink. 3 days later, Zoe showed up. She walked in like she still had a right to the place. Hair in a messy bun, oversized hoodie, looking more like a student than a teacher. Her face was pale. You set me up, she said. No hello. No emotion. You exposed yourself, I replied. You think you're better than me now, she snapped. I just stared. She sat on the armrest of the couch. You ruined everything. No, I said. You did that. I just took the blindfold off. She folded her arms, like she was trying to protect what little pride she had left. Do you even know why I cheated on you? Because I was weak, I said. Her eyes widened. That's what you told yourself, right? That I was too quiet. Too soft. That I didn't take charge like your father or some movie hero. You told yourself you needed someone who made you feel alive. She looked like I just slapped her with every word. "Guess what, Zoe?" I said, stepping closer. "That weak boy? The one you pitted? He learned to break people better than you ever could." "I made a mistake," she whispered. "No," I said. "You made several." That night, I filed for divorce. Didn't even give her the dignity of hearing it from me first. Just had the papers served to her at the school board hearing. Right in front of her peers. In front of the camera crews swarming around. Let her feel it. Let her wear it. The investigation deepened. Turns out Daniel had more stories about other women, screenshots, dirty texts. He became a little town celebrity. I don't think he even understood the damage. He just liked the attention. They suspended Zoe indefinitely. Diane was formally fired, not that she could have returned in her condition anyway. I stayed quiet through all of it. And then I struck one last time. I visited Diane in the hospital. My father wasn't there. I knew his schedule. He was at work, running the same HVAC job he'd held since I was a kid. He still hadn't connected all the dots, hadn't realized that Diane's fall wasn't an accident. But part of him had stopped caring. That was enough for me. Diane lay in bed, pale, tubes running into her arm, back propped up by pillows. Her eyes fluttered open when I pulled up a chair. "You," she rasped. "Me," I said. She tried to reach for the nurse button, but I held it in my hand already. "You don't get to cry for help anymore." She looked at me with a kind of exhausted hate. "You destroyed me." "No," I said, voice calm. "You destroyed me. Since I was 12. Every insult. Every slap you denied. Every time you made me feel like trash in my own home. I spent half my life thinking it was my fault." Her lip quivered. "Now," I continued, "you're alone. You'll never teach again. And you'll never walk again. You're a monster," she whispered. I leaned in. "No. I'm your monster. One you made with every word you ever spat at me." She didn't cry. She didn't speak. Just stared. And I left her like that. I didn't go back. Not to her hospital room. Not to Zoe. Not even to my dad. I moved out a week later. Took only what I needed. Left behind every memory soaked in betrayal. I got a cheap apartment in the next town over. Started working as a night security guard at a warehouse. Quiet, simple, honest work. No one asked questions. I liked it that way. Sometimes I look in the mirror and wonder who I've become. I'm not the scared boy Diane raised. I'm not the desperate husband Zoe humiliated. I'm something else now. Someone they didn't see coming. 3 months passed. I didn't hear from Zoe. Not once. No texts. No emails. No calls. The divorce went through, clean and cold. The kind where you sign on dotted lines and never make eye contact again. Diane was still alive, still paralyzed, but according to the hospital reports I occasionally hacked into, thanks to a buddy from high school who owed me a favor, she developed infections and nerve damage. Her rehab wasn't going well. Her will to fight? Almost non-existent. My father never called either. That hurt more than I thought it would. But I accepted it. Some wounds don't heal with phone calls. And some men just aren't built to face truth. So I worked nights, slept days, lived quiet. Ate alone. Walked in silence. Watched the sun set behind chain-link fences. It wasn't much of a life, but it was mine. Until the knock. It came on a Sunday morning, around 8 a.m., just after my night shift. I just kicked off my boots, halfway through a cup of microwaved coffee, when 3 quick knocks broke the silence. I opened the door expecting maintenance or the landlord. It was Zoe. She looked different. Not unrecognizable, but softer. Like something inside her had gone still. Hair loose. No makeup. Just a plain hoodie and jeans. No wedding ring. No spite in her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked. I should have said no. But something about her made me step aside. She sat on the edge of the couch, same way she had the day she accused me of ruining her life. But this time she didn't look like someone who came to blame. She looked like someone already buried in guilt. "I'm pregnant," she said. The words didn't register at first. I blinked. "You're lying." She shook her head. "It's yours," she added. "That's not possible," I said. "We hadn't, you know, since the last week of July," she interrupted. "Right before everything started falling apart. Before Diane told you. Before I confessed anything." She pulled something from her bag. A folded envelope. A paternity test appointment. Ultrasound printout. I looked at it, then looked at her. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I don't want you to find out from someone else. Or through court papers." "And what? You think I'll take you back because you're carrying my kid?" "No," she said, softly. "I think you deserve to know the truth. That's all." I leaned back, running a hand down my face. Everything had felt so final. So finished. Now this? You expect me to believe this isn't another game? I asked. "No," she said again. "I don't expect anything from you." She stood up. "I just didn't want to lie again. Not about this." And then she left. I didn't sleep that day. I stared at the ultrasound image for hours. It was only a little blur on black paper. But something about it hooked deep. Mine? I didn't know how to feel. Rage and love don't play fair when they fight in your chest. They tear you from inside. That night at work, I didn't focus. My manager yelled at me twice. I didn't care. By midnight, I made a decision. I went to visit my father. He looked older than I remembered. Hair thinner. Back hunched. Same stained flannel he wore when I was 13. He opened the door and didn't smile. Just blinked. "Caleb." "Hey, Dad." Long silence. Then, "You wanna come in?" I did. The house was dark. Quiet. Empty. No TV. No photos of Diane on the walls anymore. Her cane still leaned by the doorway, untouched. We sat at the kitchen table. 2 mugs. Old coffee. Cold truth. "I know what she did," he said finally. I raised an eyebrow. "I saw the messages. Heard things. People talk." He looked down into his coffee. "I should have listened to you, years ago." I said nothing. "She was already cheating on me back when she told me you'd stolen money from her purse. Said you were turning into your mother. I punished you for that." I remembered that day. The yelling. The slamming door. The week I wasn't allowed to eat dinner at the table. He swallowed hard. "I failed you." The word stunned me. My father never admitted fault. Never. "I came here to tell you something," I said, clearing my throat. "Zoe's pregnant. It's mine." He blinked, lips parting slightly. "And I don't know what to do." Another silence. Then he looked up and said something that cracked me open. "Don't be like me, son. Don't let bitterness raise your child." I left after that. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't need to. Something had shifted. I got back to my apartment and stood outside for a long time. And then, I made another decision. I picked up the phone. "Zoe," I said when she answered, surprised. "I'll be there for the baby. But I'm not coming back to you." Her voice broke. "I understand. And you'll sign sole custody over to me once the baby's born." She was quiet. Then, okay. 3 more weeks passed. Zoe and I didn't speak often, just enough to exchange updates. She went to her OB visits. I covered half the costs, told her I'd take full custody when the time came. She didn't argue. She barely even responded. It was like she'd already disappeared. Maybe guilt changes people. Or maybe her pride was finally hollowed out. But even as I looked forward to the future, to fatherhood, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. It started with a phone call from an unknown number. Late one night. Static. Silence. Then breathing. I hung up. Then the same number called the next day. This time, I heard a faint voice. "She's still watching you." Click. The words burned in my ears. I stared at the phone until the screen went black. I knew who it was about. Diane. I hadn't visited her since the night I left her broken on the hardwood floor, her legs folded under her like paper, her spine collapsed. But the hospital hadn't forgotten me. Neither had she. So I called my friend Tyler, the guy who helped me hack her records before. A software engineer now. Paranoid. Brilliant. "Caleb," he said. "You sure you want to dig back into that?" "I need to know if Diane's trying to get to me," I said. "I think she's plotting something." Tyler sighed. "All right. Gimme an hour." He called back in 20 minutes. "You're not gonna like this." "What?" "She's been moved to a private rehab center. Expensive. Quiet. Guess who's footing the bill?" "My dad?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "No. Zoe." My chest tightened. "You're sure?" I traced the payments. Some kind of hidden trust fund she had. Must have been under a different name. Started funneling money into Diane's account the same week she told you she was pregnant. I dropped the phone. I drove out to the rehab center that night. It was tucked away behind pine trees and old farmland. A place rich people go to be forgotten and reborn. When I asked for Diane by name, the receptionist looked up slowly. "She's not allowed visitors. Make an exception." She didn't blink. So I did what I had to. I slipped into the hallway during a nurse rotation and followed the smell of antiseptic and lavender until I saw her name on the door. Diane Reynolds, room 214. I pushed it open. There she was. Half her body withered, her legs motionless, arms weak. But her eyes. They were alive. Shining like black glass. Hungry. "Caleb," she said, voice scratchy but calm. "I wondered how long it would take you." I didn't step inside. "I know Zoe's been paying for all this." She smiled. Not a sweet smile. A serpent's grin. "Poor girl," she whispered. "Still believes she can make things right." "What are you planning?" I asked. She looked out the window. "I may not be able to walk. But I can whisper. And people still listen to whispers." "You're threatening me?" "No. I'm warning you." She turned her head to me again, her voice now like gravel. "If you try to take that baby, I'll make sure you're buried under court papers and restraining orders before your name ever appears on a birth certificate." I clenched my fists. "You're a cripple. A liar. A predator." She didn't blink. "And still smarter than you." I stepped into the room then, slowly. Got close enough for her to smell the anger coming off my skin. "You want to whisper?" I said. "Fine. I'll shout." "You'll lose," she said with certainty. "Men like you always lose when they underestimate a woman with nothing left to lose." And then, almost casually, she added, "Ask your father what I made him sign last week." I drove straight to my dad's house. Pounded the door. He opened it, startled. "Did Diane make you sign anything?" His eyes dropped. "What was it?" He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a notarized document, a statement of character, claiming I was unstable, violent, manipulative. That I had hurt Diane in the past. That I was emotionally unfit to raise a child. My knees nearly buckled. "You signed this?" "I didn't know what it was," he said, voice small. "She said it was just a financial affidavit." I thought. "You thought she still loved you?" He didn't respond. I walked out. That night, I sat in my dark kitchen, everything silent except the old fridge humming in the background. Zoe had turned her back again. Diane had sharpened her claws. And now, they were circling the one thing I had left. My child. But they didn't know the man they were up against now. Not the broken boy Diane raised. Not the desperate husband Zoe left. They were messing with the version of me I became after hell. The man with nothing left to lose, and one thing to protect. I disappeared. Not completely. Not in a dramatic, fake your death and live in the woods, kind of way. But I deleted all my socials. Disconnected my number. Dropped my location on everything. Even quit my job, left a polite resignation letter with no forwarding address. No trace. The only person I told was Tyler. "You serious about this?" he asked as we sat in his dim garage, the glow of his servers humming behind us. "Serious as death," I replied. He studied me for a moment, then handed over a phone, burner, untraceable, and a new ID he made under the table. Caleb didn't exist anymore. Not the one Diane raised. Not the one Zoe betrayed. I buried both of those men. What rose was someone else. I rented a tiny room at an old fishing motel 30 miles out of town. A place no one remembered because no one ever stayed. The front desk clerk didn't ask questions. Just handed me the keys with a shrug and went back to watching old war documentaries. The room smelled like mildew and cigarettes, but it was mine. Quiet. Forgotten. Perfect. This was my cocoon. Every day, I plotted. Every night, I wrote. I compiled a full archive on Diane's past misconduct, anonymous testimonials from former students, evidence Tyler pulled from encrypted drives, even a voice recording of her threatening me in her hospital room. I labeled it the Widowmaker file. Then I started on Zoe. Her secret trust fund, her sudden generosity toward Diane, the shell companies she moved money through, Tyler found it all. I traced every dollar. I wasn't going to expose them yet. Not until I was ready. But I was going to control them. And the best way to control someone? Let them believe they've won. It didn't take long for Diane to start asking questions. Tyler intercepted her encrypted messages. "Where's Caleb? He's not responding. Did he run? Is he going to take the baby?" She was unraveling. Good. Zoe too. She'd sent a message to my dad, asking if he knew where I was. When he said no, she sent a single response. "Tell him if he shows up at the hospital, he'll never see the baby again." Diane already filed the papers. That was my trigger. They thought their words were bullets. But I was already wearing armor. I waited 2 more weeks. Then one morning, I drove into town. Disguised, beard grown out, cap pulled low. I didn't go to see anyone. I went to the courthouse. Filed a motion. A sealed custody petition based on evidence of abuse, mental instability, and manipulation between Zoe and Diane. Attached digital exhibits. Dozens of them. The judge wouldn't rule immediately. But I'd made my move. Now I needed just one more step. Late one night, I broke into my childhood home. I still had the key. My dad never changed the locks. I walked quietly, not to be heard, but not just for that. It was sacred to me. The ghosts of a boy once ignored, insulted, humiliated, they still lived here. I could feel them in the walls. I stepped into Diane's old bedroom. It was empty. Dusty. But I left something in the drawer of her nightstand, a flash drive labeled "The Truth. Play me." And then I vanished again. 3 days later, it happened. Tyler texted from a burner line. She saw the file. She screamed at a nurse. Hospital called the police thinking she was having a breakdown. I smiled for the first time in months. She'd finally seen what I built, her entire legacy, her entire illusion, pulled apart. In her own words. Her own actions. Played back to her like a horror film with no ending. And Zoe? Tyler said she'd gone quiet. Too quiet. That's when I realized something. There's still one part of this story I hadn't considered. What if Zoe was never Diane's pawn, but her partner? The thought sank its claws into me. I opened up the Widowmaker file again. Went through every detail of Zoe's interactions with Diane. The money. The timeline. The way she played innocent until Diane fell, then swooped in. Zoe hadn't just betrayed me. She helped Diane build the trap. And now Diane was falling apart. Which meant Zoe. She was next. But first, I had to face her. I didn't sneak into Zoe's house. I walked in through the front door. She left it unlocked. As if she wanted me to come back. The nursery was half-painted. Yellow walls. The kind of color people pick when they don't know the baby's gender, or maybe just when they want to pretend life's still bright. She was in the kitchen when I stepped in. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just stared at me with those wide, tired eyes, like someone who hadn't slept in days, or maybe months. "I knew you'd come," she said. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out the flash drive, the second one. The one labeled her final move. I tossed it on the table. "You should sit," I said. She didn't. She leaned on the counter and folded her arms. "You think I don't know what's on that?" she asked. "You think I didn't help you build it?" That made me blink. "What?" She looked away. "I sent you the first name. The first student. The one Diane slept with." I stood frozen, the pieces clicking together like teeth snapping shut. "You? She ruined you," Zoe said. "But not before she ruined me." I sat down, hard. My breath caught somewhere between shock and disbelief. "Diane made me what I was when you met me. She found me freshman year at college. She said I reminded her of someone she hated." "You?" I said. "She meant you, Caleb. She used me to break you before she ever had to lift a finger." My mind spun. Everything, every fight, every moment Zoe seemed to flip between love and distance, warmth and frost. It all looked different now. Like remembering a dream and realizing it was a nightmare. "I never loved you like I should have," she continued. "But I also never meant to destroy you. I just didn't know how to escape her." Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't fall. "I thought if I played both sides, I could survive. You told me Diane was cheating on my dad. Why? Because I wanted you to stop protecting her. To see her like I saw her. And you told me after you cheated on me. She flinched. Yes. There was silence. The kind that buzzes in your ears. I stood. You're not the only one who kept a secret, I said, reaching into my coat pocket. I pulled out an envelope. Zoe opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a DNA report. She scanned it. Her breath hitched. You're not the mother, I said coldly. She dropped the papers. The room blurred for both of us. I saw it in her knees, how they buckled, how her hands shot out to steady herself. The baby, she whispered. But I was, how could? I tested it twice. From the hospital. You had a miscarriage 3 months ago. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Diane took a student's baby. Claimed it was yours. Paid the girl off. That's not possible. She planned to control me through you. When I vanished, you lost your leverage. So you doubled down. The nursery. The guilt. The crocodile tears. It almost worked. I turned to leave. But I stopped at the door. She ruined both of us. But you helped. I paused. She'll never walk again. You? You'll never be a mother. The door clicked shut behind me.